So that's about a third of the organisation. So, and we're at 10:32. Probably worth kicking off, Steve. Otherwise, we will run out of time.
Okay, thank you. So welcome everyone to the latest instalment of EMT Live. My name's Steve Allman. I'm your host for today. Today we'll be using the MS Teams meeting to host the event. We will be responding to pre-submitted questions and strongly encourage anyone with a question for EMT to ask it via the questions and answers section if that is up and running. The Q&A function is available via your top menu bar. Please note these questions won't come through anonymously, so it will have your name on it. And for those of you that are reading them, if you like them, the more likes they get, the more likely they're going to be asked by me of EMT colleagues. Just to confirm, any unanswered questions will be collated and responded via the Nest after the event. There are live captions for today's event. If you want to use these, please go to your meeting controls and select more options and turn on live captions. We are recording this event for those that can't make it today and want to watch it, or if you're really keen and rewatch it, please do so. So without further ado, can we go and introduce the panel? So if you can please say hi, introduce yourself and your job title. So if I can start with Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael Van Hemert. I'm the MD of all 4 CSUs. Previously was MD of SCW.
Thank you. And Faye?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Faye Robinson. I'm Interim Deputy Managing Director, stepping into Michael's shoes when he stepped up. And I'm also still the Executive Director of Integrated Health and Care Services.
Thank you. And Claire?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Claire Bryan. I'm the Executive Director of Finance.
And Elspeth?
Morning, everyone. I'm Elspeth Griffiths. I'm the Director of People at SCW.
And Matt?
Morning, everyone. Matt Carter. I'm the Senior Partnership Director.
And Laura?
Morning, all. Laura Tully, Director of Clinical Services and Clinical Governance.
And Tom?
Morning, everybody. I'm Tom Quilty. I'm Executive Director of Transformation.
And Lisa?
Good morning, I'm Lisa Greenhorn and I'm the Director of Development.
I feel like a teacher just on the register. Thank you for everyone introducing yourself. I'm going to pass you over to Michael to do a quick update on the CSU operating model and the review approach.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Let me just kick off by saying thank you to everyone. Given the challenges of the NHS, the sort of general challenges, the management of change that is still going on within SCW, the demands of our partners, I just want to say a huge thank you for all the work that you do, because I remain fantastically impressed with how well you all do in servicing the demands of the NHS and the communities that we serve, so the difference that we make. So thank you very, very much for that. I have to start with that, of course. In terms of priorities, where are we? We continue to really focus on our business plan and our performance as an organisation, making sure that we continue to effectively deliver on the promises that we made. Collaboration across all of the teams, across the 4 CSUs is a huge priority as well, and I would encourage everyone to get involved in that. There's quite a few formal mechanisms for that, but also informally. Do please reach out to colleagues across the 4 CSUs as we all work together and make sure we really optimise the strengths of the 4. And we do that by everybody on this call working together with colleagues across the country, with Mids and Lancs, with Arden and Gem, and with Next as well. So I would really encourage you to collaborate wherever you can. In terms of the strategic review, we're making really good progress. I'm very happy with it. The collaboration is really going well, as I've mentioned. We are aligning the business plans for next year. We are aligning areas such as the NHS survey, and doing that in a similar way. We're aligning comms. So there's a whole number of areas where things are starting to get aligned, which is really great to see and in line with what we want to achieve. The strategic review itself, really working on our place within the NHS infrastructure or architecture, designing what it is we're going to be doing in the future. That's influenced by NHS central policy, which in turn is hugely influenced by the Darcy report, which has just come out. So we need to take that into account. But it's also influenced by the service transfer plans that the systems have across the country. So we're trying to get a handle on those. It's influenced by the services redesign that we're working on across areas such as data and analytics and GPIT. We're also looking at new potential contractual models. So there's a whole basket of activity going on, understanding of how we sit within the NHS and across the systems in order to come up with a new form for us, a new way of working. A lot of people ask about restructuring plans, which I absolutely understand, but my answer is always the same and still the same at the moment, because it's where it's at, which is that we need to really understand all the previous things I mentioned around central policy, service transfers, etc., before we can really think about a new form. So form does follow function on this. That's a really quick update for me, Steve. I know we're trying to stick to short updates so we can get as many questions as possible. So back to you.
Yes, thank you very much. So moving on, without further ado, to Faye to give an update on priorities and focus.
Yeah, good morning. I'm just waiting for a quick slide to come up, which people will have seen several times before. Thank you, Vanessa. So back in our last EMT Live, and as a focus for our Senior Leadership Forum, I've been talking around these three themes, which will remain consistent throughout the year. So when I kind of stepped into Michael's shoes in June, these were the three priority areas that he asked me to focus on, which was absolutely making sure we deliver our business plan for 24-25. And it's Claire's going to do an update in the finance section, but we are doing really well this year. We're on track to achieve our plan. So again, a huge thank you to everybody for all the contributions that you have been making. Because Claire will go through in a bit more details around the numbers on that side. The second area was remembering that we were in management of change. We entered the financial year with a management of change, and we still are in that process for a number of staff. And that also leads into some of our service transformations that we have been doing. So this really is the year of embedding some of the new services that we've commenced or taken on at the back end of 23-24, and some of the changes that we've been making to services as part of our customer running cost allowances. And the running cost allowance hasn't gone away. We're still working with customers to achieve those areas, and some of those customers that last year were not coming to us for the running cost allowance are starting to have conversations. And again, those are detailed areas which we will be focusing in on, particularly around the partnership directors and working with service lines. And the other part, again, in number 2 on this, is around our workforce, taking people along with the journey of change that we've been going through as part of our management of change, but also the complex environment that Michael's just touched on as part of our wider collaboration journey, and exploring the opportunities that collaboration brings for us as an organisation, but also removing the competition element here. And again, Elspeth's going to talk a little bit more in detail around the workforce issues. But again, you would have seen in my recent blog where we've been spending quite a lot of EMT time talking about our staff, what our requirements are, what is the focus we need to do. We are a people business, and actually keeping everyone in the heart of our decisions and conversations that we have is really important to us. So that last point, again, we're going to hear more, and I know there's been some questions around the collaboration, which we'll do in some wider settings, but we are, as part of the collaboration, just about to start to embark on engagement as a wider engagement across all of the CSUs, and again you'll hear about that in the next couple of weeks. Again, looking to seek the views of our staff as we move forward as part of the wider collaboration agenda. But we are working in quite complex times at the moment. Political landscape has changed since we had our EMT live. I think it was the 4th of July, wasn't it, when we actually were talking last time? I think we were just about to have a change of government. So some of the changes for our business planning for 25-26, we have started that. Again, Michael is very clear that our business plan for 25-26 will be a collaborative plan. We will have one overarching CSU plan with 4 separate organisational plans, which will be looking at alignment across them. And that needs to be brought into context. So we're starting some earlier discussions this year than what we normally do, working across with our other CSU colleagues to make sure we can get that consistency and also explore the opportunities that that will bring for us. But again, we just need to make sure that's done in context with the DARSI review, with the commercial spending review, which is happening nationally, to make sure that all the political landscape that we're all working in is reflected in our plans. So lots of change, lots of exciting opportunities is what I probably would also, my pint is always half full. And we just need to make sure that we communicate out as well as possible to everyone and bring everyone across in our journey in the next couple of months. So Steve, that's it from me. I'll pass you back to Griffith.
Thank you, Faye. So moving on to Claire, who's now going to give an overview of our finance and performance against the strategic priorities.
Thank you, Steve. Hello, everybody. I think if you could flick on to the next slide, Vanessa, it'd be helpful to have that visual to support people. Thank you very much. So people will remember, as part of our business plan, we set some key priorities, and these are what we call our key performance indicators, our KPIs, for how we keep a track of how well we're delivering against those. So building on what Faye was describing just a moment ago, we are performing really well in terms of delivery against our plan. You can see there some lovely green indicators. Our income is bang on target, slightly above, but we're doing really well against our targets. Pipeline income, that's new income secured, is also performing particularly well. We are probably ahead of where we might have expected to be, and it's been a really challenging year. So achieving that amount of secured income at this time in the year is something to really be proud of in terms of what you have delivered as teams within the organisation. Focus obviously needs to turn to delivery of that income, because winning the income is only half the story, of course, but we'll track that as we go through the year. So the summary position is we are on track, which puts us in a really good place as we go through the year to respond to things that might happen later in the year, changes that we need to respond to, etc. So in a really good position. What I would say is not ignoring the last tile on the screen, which is the staff satisfaction, which you'll note is amber at 53%. That is very concerning to us as an executive management team. You are our strength of our organisation. You know, we don't deliver our plans as an executive team. It's all of you out there that deliver it. So when our staff satisfaction indicator takes a dip, as it has, we take that very seriously and respond to that accordingly. Some of that dip may not be unexpected with the quite significant management of change programme that we've been through, but we are not complacent about that. So that is something that we are investigating and developing actions to respond to. Customer scores also stay really positive, which is really good in terms of where we are with our strategic review. So we're keeping a focus on our customers, because clearly what they say about us and to us is important to us also. So as we go through the year, I think month 6 will be a particularly important time for amending our forecast. So we'll be halfway through the year, and it will be a key stock take point where we look to assess the risk that's ahead of us, and how well we are achieving our targets, and whether we want to revise our forecasts. Some things have come in partway through the year, so people will be aware of the pay award that was announced fairly recently. So we've been quantifying the impact of that. So as we move into month 6, we will amend the forecast. So just to give people a sense of the quantum, just the incremental changes to the step points for bands 8A and above, that's had a projected income of just shy of £1 million for us. So these are not small cost pressures, but we're in a good position to be able to absorb those and manage those. So that's it in a nutshell, really. I didn't want to focus any more on the finance position to maximise time for questions at the end. It's a positive news story, which is a good place to be. So back to you, Steve.
Thank you, Claire. That's really good to hear. And moving on to that people aspect, Elsbeth, if you can give an update on people and change programme.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. If you could move the slide on, thank you. I shall just touch on one of the aspects that Michael mentioned in his introduction was around the management of change update. So we know we are still managing that process that started at the beginning of this year and moving that through. So we know that we have lost a number of colleagues who have gone under reasonable redundancy. In total, that's 14 to date. We have, however, redeployed over 15 staff, and we still have some vacancies, and we still have people on the redeployment register who we are actively seeking alternative employment for. But yeah, we are progressing kind of the management of change programme, but recognise that that's really difficult for people if they're in the redeployment pool. And obviously we're looking actively for those people to be redeployed in alternative posts. So that's kind of the numbers that we set out. It's obviously significantly less than we originally thought in terms of the potentially number of redundant employees that we might have. So that's good news. But if you're one of the 39 who are currently still affected, that's obviously quite difficult to manage for you personally as well. So just please bear that in mind. Next slide, please. So we've had a couple of questions around as well on the values, and I think the work that we're doing across the 4 CSUs is one of those areas that kind of raises that as a query in terms of what are our values, and are our values similar in terms of that. And they are quite similar. They're not the same, but they use very similar language. We're all NHS organisations. But I also just wanted to say that in 2023, so last summer, we spent a lot of time with a number of staff talking to you about values and what they meant to you, and we did a lot of work to update, refresh, and bring tools to support how we use values within our organisation around discussions with managers in terms of the appraisal process and so on and so forth. So all of that information is available on the Nest and on Consult HR. So if you want to refresh your memory about any of that, and yes, we cover values in appraisals and one-to-ones and Teams meetings and so on, as well as the induction. So they are still very live and still very vital part of our organisation. But there is conversations, as you would imagine, across the CSUs to see how similar we are, how different we are, and where there might be an opportunity to align wherever possible. Next slide, please. And you can tell I'm whipping through these because we want to get to the questions of people have and actually have a conversation rather than just me sort of talking on a download, which is obviously not what I want to do. So one of the other areas that staff raised was around staff recognition, and we've done a lot of work around the Hummingbird Awards, which is a really lovely opportunity to get involved, either by being nominated, by being a nominee, or by being just a manager or a member of the team. scheme where we actually celebrate those awards, the people who are nominated and who have won, and that has been developed in conjunction with teams to grow that, if you like, and expand it and relaunch it, which relaunched on the 4th of September. There will be 3 award categories: Champion of Belonging, Appreciation Award and an Innovation Award. And we've also looked at how people can nominate people to make it easier, to make it less bureaucratic, so that we encourage people to make nominations and participate. So the award nominations for the new categories are open until the 4th of November. So please do have a look. Again, it's all on the Nest and the Loop. So if you could have a look at that and just see if there's an opportunity for us to nominate somebody, or for you to suggest a nomination for somebody in your team or another team that you work with. And as well as that, to get better at it, we are very receptive to any feedback, and we would like to see an increase in the number of applications by 20%, and that's something we'll be looking at and monitoring. So if you've got any feedback about how it works or how it doesn't work, then we're very happy to hear that. The other thing that to bear in mind with the staff recognition as well is we did the long service awards as well. So that was our first one-off, if you like, looking back at all of our colleagues in terms of the career and the services they've given to the NHS, which was a fabulous event. But we're doing that on an annual basis as well, in terms of people's anniversaries that will be part of that staff recognition process. And the next slide, I think, if there is one. Yeah, thank you. So one of the things that Claire touched on was around staff satisfaction and the fact that we have seen a dip in that. It is just one measure, and it's a question that's asked in the Pulse survey, which we do on a quarterly basis, and it's, would you recommend SCW as a place to work? And I think we do have to be realistic, given that we're going through a change process and there are a number of people who are currently at risk of redundancy, that many people might choose to say, well, no, not really, because I'm not sure how secure it is. So we kind of understand that, which might be one of the reasons for that dip. But we are regularly doing the Pulse survey. And as you can see, the number of people who respond to the survey has also gone down as well. And we recognise that over time, sometimes people dip out of surveys and choosing to respond to them. For them to be as robust and as realistic as possible, the more people who contribute, the better, which is why we take a break in the kind of quarter, this quarter coming, because we have the national staff survey this is coming up. That's going to be launched in October. There's a 2-month window for people to respond to, and generally speaking, we have a very, very high response rate, over 72% last year. So we're hoping that we get a good, strong response to that, because it is a way of you sharing what you think, what your views are. You might share the views that some people have on the Pulse survey, you might not, but it's really important that your views are heard, and the national staff survey is the way to do that. But we do look at the survey responses, and we recognise that things are challenging for staff at the moment. And as management teams, we've also had conversations about how we can support staff in terms of appraisals, one-to-ones, regular meetings, completing statutory and mandatory training, having those conversations to make it a more joined up approach in terms of how people feel about the organisation, given that we are through an organisational change policy at the moment. And I think that was all I was going to cover. I don't think I've got another slide. There we are. That's the sub detail, if you like, of the Pulse survey, and those are some of the details around what we look at. And we recognise the challenges that we have around staff mood, and some of the core questions that Claire has already referenced in terms of her KPIs. Thank you. That was all.
Thank you, Elspeth. Very conscious that we are keen to have as much time as possible for the Q&A section. We have some pre-submitted questions, and we can see some questions coming through on the questions and answers forum. So thank you those that have submitted today. I'm going to try and blend some of the pre-submitted with those Q&A questions posed. The first pre-submitted one, Claire, I think it relates to an area that you're responsible for, which is please can EMT set out the specific green initiatives that SCW is currently progressing? There is rarely any mention of the SCW Green Plan at EMT Live, and the Green Plan published to the Nest is from February 2022. Significant carbon savings were made following the move out of offices into agile working. But what next? Please can EMT be clear about specific initiatives currently in progress rather than general aspirations to be more green? And then there is an associated one around what does the green plan look like in the next 12 months?
Of course, thank you, Steve. And you're right, I am responsible now for the Green Plan and all things environment and sustainability. So it's great to see a number of these questions coming through. So there are other pre-submitted questions about sustainability, which if we don't get time to get to them today, we will answer through the chat. But yes, I took over the exec lead from David Tappin of our carbon net zero commitments, and as part of that oversight of delivery of our green plan. So it's worth saying we have previously invested as an organisation to develop our green plan, and although the document itself is dated February 2022, our 24 to 26 business plan saw us renew our commitments to sustainability as one of our key 5 business plan objectives. So that commitment is clearly still there, and although the document is dated, the actions within it are not. It's also worth saying that our green plan doesn't stand alone. So for example, earlier this year we adopted a new environmental policy for the organisation, which sets us on a journey to compliance with some of the international environmental standards. So you might be familiar with the term ISO standards. But our approach to sustainability is more than just plans and policy statements. Of course, it has to be practical and impact in praxis. But as such, it is increasingly embedded in everything that we do. And I don't mean to be vague with that, but clearly part of how we all behave has an impact. So as an organisation, we continue to encourage the most sustainable travel wherever possible, with tools for staff to enable that, such as bike to work schemes. We also offer lease car schemes, which include more environmentally friendly vehicles, such as electric, etc. And I know quite a few people have taken advantage of that, because I have the benefit of seeing those requests as they come through. And that's beneficial for individuals as well, because they can take advantage of a tax saving by offsetting some of their pay to be able to do that. We also foster a strong culture of agile working. So that's another example through web conferencing and use of Teams and technology to reduce the amount of travel that we do. And obviously we encourage use of public transport and car sharing where people are able to do that. So that significantly reduces the need for the volume of travel between our sites, and the impact of that, as the questioner rightly points out, has been significant, but it continues. So you might think that impact, we've had that impact and that has now gone away, but actually over the first quarter of this year, we saw a continued reduction in our direct CO2 consumption from travel, and those kind of statistics and measures we monitor on a monthly basis and actually are subject to statutory reporting. So those are things that NHS England are keen to monitor us on as well. It doesn't stop there though, so it's not just about travel and what staff are doing and whether they're using the recycling bins. For example, we also look at our IT equipment, and just as an example, we have recycling schemes in place, energy saving features in our estates and offices, including things like motion sensor lighting, so we consume less energy. And obviously we'll work with landlords and NHS property services as we renew and refresh our estates to make sure that we're moving to greener sources of energy, that buildings are more energy efficient in terms of insulation, etc., etc. So those are a few examples, but probably too many more to go into here. There are lots, and I'll try and add some more into the sort of written version of this question that goes on to the nest so that people can get more of a sense of the practical examples. There was a third question actually that links really nicely to this, which is around N3 365 and office systems with regard to the impact of towards net zero. And Simon Sturgeon has offered a lunch and learn session for those who want to know more, because it's quite detailed to go into in this kind of session, but clearly there is a lot of interest in what SCW is doing. So we will follow up with Simon on a lunch and learn session. So I hope that's helpful, if not comprehensive, just because of the sheer volume that sits within it. So back to you, Steve.
Thank you. That's been really enlightening. And I look forward to looking at the written response as a green activist. I noted earlier, and as did some other colleagues, there was reference to the Darcy report, both in Michael and Phase Update. Michael, would be particularly interested in your view around the thoughts, reactions to the recently published report. And there was a kind of correlated question around, has anyone noticed that the Darcy report does not even mention the CSUs? And what your reflections are on that?
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. It is a really important report. I actually thought it was quite well written, and actually I took it as a relatively, from our point of view, a pretty positive report, because much of what it highlights are things that actually are in control of the politicians as much as leadership and colleagues within the NHS. So I didn't see it as a negative sort of statement on the NHS as such. A lot to go at, and I know it's taken really seriously. Centrally, I'm aware of a lot of conversations going on about how to deal with the areas coming up within it. So, so again, I don't think it's a negative report from our point of view, and I think it will lead to some really positive change and some perhaps new approaches within the NHS. I absolutely accept CSUs don't get mentioned. Like I guess many of you, I did a little word search on CSU when I first saw the report. CSUs do actually get mentioned as having commented on the report at the start, or engaged in the questions at the start. If you go right to the back of the report, you'll find Mids and Lancs, for example, is mentioned. But so there was engagement on that. I do know that how the NHS deals with internal consultancy, internal transformation is absolutely up for discussion, and the role of CSUs within that is seen as very, very positive. And the strength of CSUs within that is recognised. So I know those discussions are ongoing. And also our role within data analytics, digital, providing sort of business services into the NHS infrastructure is also being discussed. So the sort of work that we do is absolutely up for discussion, all from a sort of positive context, perhaps not branded under the name CSU, which is maybe not a bad thing, because that's a name that we do need to move on from. But I think we're going to come back to that in a question in a minute.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you for that. And in the spirit of your response, there was a question that's been picked up on the Q&A chat that's also a pre-submitted question. It's great to hear that the spirit and commitment to collaboration is strongly shared across all 4 CSUs. My sense is that there is significant collaboration at EMT level and one below, but it is unclear where and when staff should use their own initiative to collaborate, or when they should wait to be invited to pieces of work as structured and directed. Please, can you give a staff a steer or a principle to work to? Tom, do you have a particular view on this?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. First of all, it's a really interesting question, isn't it? Because the answer to it, I think, is a judgment call. And, I think EMT, certainly in this organisation, I'm sure in the other CSUs, place a lot of sway in the initiative of the people across our team. So it's going to be a judgment call. It's going to depend on exactly what type of collaboration is being requested and in what context, etc. Now, I know, so in transformation, for example, which is obviously a world I know very well, there are all sorts of opportunities for us to get together to talk about how we share skills and capabilities across the team. But if we go back to phase sort of priorities that you set out at the beginning, the delivery of our business plan is absolutely fundamental. So we have to make sure that we stay externally focused, customer focused, and that we focus on delivering our business plan. And lots and lots of collaboration is great, but can result in inefficiency, can't it? You know, we could become quite internally focused, spend a lot of time in lots of internal discussions about how we could work together differently, which of course will have benefit, but there is a risk that it impacts on our ability to serve our customers and to take new opportunities, etc., etc. So I think at an EMT level, that's where our judgment sits. Now in transformation, I've talked about us collaborating, but making sure that I, for example, I'm aware of where we're going to go and do sort of significant collaboration activities. A quick conversation, fine, because I want to make sure that we do keep focused on delivering our work, but also take the opportunities to collaborate. Within other service lines that I know less well, I suspect it's going to be more circumstantial, depending on the exact context of that. But I think EMT's line on this would be really positive about collaboration, as Michael said, really clear that the business plan delivery is our priority and we must stay efficient and market focused as per phase steer. And I think probably something that I would advise most people to talk to their manager or their director about something if it's going to take, you know, a significant amount of time, just so that we can keep some control and coordination over it. We make sure things don't duplicate, but obviously positive about collaborating because there's all sorts of benefits for us in there. So it's a bit of a fudge of an answer because it is a judgment call, but I would say ask for advice before doing anything significant and keep focused on our customers and delivery. That would be my steer.
Thank you, Tom. And in the same vein of talking about that collaboration across the CSUs, there's a pre-submitted question, Michael. Again, I'd be interested in your view on this. Is there a view about the naming of the CSUs? Having avoided the term CSU for many years, we are now using it as a more common term more than ever. What is the direction of thinking here?
Yeah, I recognise the fact we're using it more. It's because all of the individual organisations previously had sort of started to come up with their own names, and so to have a label that applies to all, we've sort of seemed to have gone back to CSU. I am really keen to change it, and I do have agreement that we will change it as part of sort of the form follows function point. So I would be very hopeful that over the coming period, difficult to pin down exactly when, but we absolutely will change it, and we'll change it to recognise what it is that we do within the architecture that I talked about before, on the basis of service redesign, on the basis of how we sit within the architecture based on sort of central policy reviews. And it'll be a really important point for us when we change it, because we need to be very clear at that point what it is we do and what it is we don't do. And I think that's a sort of a reset point which will help us moving forward. So it's definitely an inappropriate name for us now. It's a legacy name, and it needs to change. And I think that is accepted everywhere.
Thank you. So we'll watch that space to find the new name, or we're going to have a competition.
I have talked to some comms colleagues about yes, doing a bit of a competition and going out to staff for it, which I think we will do. Thank you.
Certainly realised that might have been an overstatement. In terms of the Q&A chat facility, there's an interesting question that's come up, and I know this has been a subject of conversation in the past. The question is, please will you share the rationale for cancelling HSJ subscriptions? HSJ has been a highly valued resource for years that has helped with understanding the context to a number of stakeholder problems and our ability to suggest solutions. Twice over the past month, I've been asked a question, have you heard from stakeholders about issues that are important to them? Is anyone keen to answer that question? Maybe Lisa?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Yeah, very happy to pick this one up. Obviously, this is a financially driven decision that we've had to make. Obviously, the NHS and our customers are facing some really significant financial and economic challenges. So we feel we need to play our part in helping to reduce the burden on the NHS finances. And things like HSJ licenses are a really expensive corporate overhead. In fact, the prices have gone up dramatically in recent years. And so we have taken the decision to reduce the number of licenses that we buy collectively across the CSUs. I would say that HSJ is not the only source of really important insights and intelligence. We have shared and continue to share links to free to access sites and resources that are really helpful and informative for staff about what's happening in the healthcare market. And obviously we, through the partnership team and the quartets, we collect a lot of intelligence about what we hear direct from customers, about the things that are important to them and the things that they need help with. So we've got lots of routes that we collect insights that help us inform us about where we want to focus our efforts. And my team also, because there is a question about how this relates to new opportunities and acquiring new business, my team regularly, daily sort of searches healthcare portals. We have access to information about what people are coming to the market with in the future, so we can rigorously plan and respond to those opportunities as they emerge. And those insights are also shared across all the directorates as they come through that mechanism. So it is a multifaceted approach to how we gather insights. But specifically about HSJ, it's really a financial decision that's led to that. And Steve, is it worth me mentioning conferences, because it's in a similar vein and that's come up in several questions? So I know there were some questions around conferences, and I think there is a perception that we've banned conferences altogether, but that's not the case. But what we are doing is, in order to comply with the new standards of business conduct policy and also to minimise costs, we are being much more targeted about which events and conferences we prioritise. And because of that, we require that any attendance that for conferences that people want to attend are fully justified with a clear rationale for the reason for attending, and that is approved through our executive team and up to Michael as our MD, and has to be signed off there.
Thank you for clarifying. Going back to the pre-submitted questions, there's one that relates to office closure. The question is, I'm affected by the closure of the Worthing office, so Wicker House, like so many. I feel the communication has been poor. We were told to attend a delivery forum, in there to be told that there is no update. There is a formal consultation meeting, which I feel could have been handled better. I believe the consultation is now closed. Wicker House is now closed, so everyone has been automatically transferred to the Lewis as their base. I don't know many people who have chosen to take the job in Lewis if they'd lived in the Worthing area for many reasons. Please, can we have an update, as this is affecting staff morale, staff's health and well-being? Matt, I'm conscious that this is an area of the world you know well, so are you able to comment?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Obviously, I'm impacted by this as well, so I've got a lot of empathy for this question, as Worthing is my base. So we recognise that the whole Wicker House issue has been quite difficult and perhaps could have been managed a little bit better than it has been. But our estates team are seeking a replacement office in Worthing. So a business case has been submitted to NHS England. And we're looking at a place in Liverpool Gardens, which is right in the heart of Worthing. It's next to, or very close to, where Wicker House was. And hopefully that will be approved soon by NHS England. There's a number of questions that are kind of being currently worked through. In the interim period of the new arrangement on Wicker House closing, as done now, then we're kind of describing it as a staff engagement, and a consultation will then be reopened when we know what the new arrangements are, but we can't do that ahead of NHS England sign off. So some staff who have got essential office-based workers will have particular working arrangements agreed with them in the short term, whilst more permanent arrangements are kind of sought in Worthing. And so it's not actually correct to say that all staff have been unilaterally moved towards Lewis as their base, but obviously a number of people have been and have been engaged with around that. But the engagement will happen more in terms of the consultation once we know more about Liverpool Gardens. So if that answers the question.
Thank you. And then looking at the chat again, a question that has had a number of likes, which will be of interest to many, I'm sure, is probably one for Elsbeth, given the nature of this, but many companies are moving to a 4-day working week for full-time members of staff. Is this something SCW will consider to help increase productivity, motivation and work-life balance? Team members would need to have different days off to ensure business continuity.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. And a really good question. It's obviously quite topical at the moment in the press. So we don't have any plans to introduce a 4-day working week or mandate a 4-day working week. As you all probably know, we're already quite flexible in terms of the hours and the days and the shifts and the patterns that people work, and have arrangements already in place that people can make requests to make those changes where appropriate. We also have a very agile working arrangement, which means that people can work in slightly different hours that may be outside of the normal 9 to 5 arrangement, again with agreement with managers and making sure that the work is covered and done. So we do believe we're already quite flexible, and where there are teams that maybe think that's a way of working that they can accommodate or they'd like to actually trial, we wouldn't stop that particularly. But as far as mandating or introducing a 4-day working week for teams or across the organisation, that is not something we have planned. And I think we probably need to watch this space in terms of how other organisations are dealing with it, including public sector organisations, to see whether it is quite as it stacks up, because although it might mean an additional day off, it obviously means much longer working days as well, which doesn't suit everybody, and depends on your own kind of personal lifestyle and those sorts of things. So I think it'll be a watch this space, but we haven't got any plans to introduce that or mandate it as a working arrangement.
Thank you. Again, just trying to blend pre-submitted questions with those that are coming through. One that caught our eye earlier was a pre-submitted question around freedom to speak up. I'm aware of some staff members have spoken out, but which have had negative impacts to them. I thought SCW was an open, transparent organisation, but why, when staff speak out, these staff members have been treated badly? I thought we were encouraged to speak out on any issues that rise to make the organisation better for everyone. But when staff do, they are treated badly. I think we need to remind ourselves of our values. Is anyone able to answer that question? Thank you, Claire.
I'll take that one, Steve. Yeah, so for those who don't know, I'm the executive sponsor of the Freedom to Speak Up Guardian, which is a key role that we have in SCW. So I am particularly passionate about this particular area. I think it's fair to say that all workplaces are more successful at helping everyone thrive when there's a culture of openness, transparency and inclusion, and that is absolutely something that we encourage in SCW, and that should be reflected through the values and behaviours that all of us display. Staff do have a number of routes that they can raise or discuss a concern. So anyone can approach a staff partnership forum representative directly to discuss a concern. We have the Freedom to Speak Up Guardian and other staff networks. There is the people team, of course, colleagues and other managers if of course the issue is close to home in your own area. And I think it's fair to say that raising an issue or a concern can be difficult and can have impacts on the individual. But there are always two sides to every story, and sometimes what is perceived is not always what is happening in practice, and so it's important not to just take things from one perspective. The Freedom to Speak Up Guardian is a specific area that is in place really to help people who have found it difficult to raise a concern, but it is important that it is raised. And they support SCW specifically to be aware of speaking up processes and sources of support, and they can help navigate the process by acting as an escalation point for colleagues who have concerns about practices or behaviours within the organisation. and who have been unable to raise the issues through another route or their usual line manager. The Freedom to Speak Up Guardian in SCW, as hopefully people will know, is Kathy Dukes. We will be doing some campaigns actually in October, because it's Freedom to Speak Up month in October. So there'll be some work going on to raise the profile of that. But my door is always open as the sponsoring exec as well. If people are finding that they aren't able to raise concerns that they have through another route, then I am always available. You know, I can't help with people's car problems or whatever, but if it's work related, absolutely give me a shout. So I hope that's helpful, and I wouldn't want anyone to feel isolated or persecuted because they're genuinely trying to raise an issue. So it's something I've pledged to lead by example, or be always willing to listen and learn and use my voice and privilege to advocate for others. So I think that's all I can say about that, Steve.
Thank you. And working alongside Kathy, I can definitely vouch for her integrity and her independence. She's definitely one to not shy away from difficult conversations.
And is it worth just mentioning that the Freedom to Speak Up Guardian has that independence? So they report nationally to the Freedom to Speak Up Guardian's office. They aren't, if they disagree with something that EMT have done, they have a route of recourse as well. So they really can exercise a level of independence in SCW. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's really worth qualifying. Just going back, we've probably got another couple of questions if we're lucky. So going back to the pre-submitted, that's also had a lot of likes on the Q&A. There is a question around AI and the use of ChatGPT. What is the guidance, the guardrails for using AI or ChatGPT at SCW? Using it to create a proposal, using it to create documents, artifacts for delivery of activity to customers, etc. Conscious that Simon isn't around, who would ordinarily do technology, but particularly keen to hear from EMT. Tom, are you?
Yeah. I'll pick up, Steve. I'll pick up. Thank you. Yeah. So this is it's a good question, isn't it? And we know things are moving really fast in this space, and it's important for us as an organisation that we keep up with that technology, but do it in a sort of safe and controlled way, but also make use of the things that can help us with our quality of our work or our efficiency and how we go about doing our work. So straight answer to the question is that SCW doesn't currently have a policy for AI. So it's being written at the moment by our information governance colleagues, and I believe it will go to the IG group for discussion on the 9th of October. Of course, they're the experts in those implications of using AI, ChatGPT. So there will be some more formal guidance coming out in the coming months, and the things that we'll want to pick up as part of that policy include things around data privacy and security, ethical considerations, which I think the sort of questioner is indicating, things around regulatory compliance, what sort of use cases there might be and what the implications of those might be. And obviously I've also picked up the question from Rob Hutchings in the chat as well this morning around the sort of environmental impact of AI, which I think is something that's important that we add in. So I've committed in my response to that we'll make sure that's part of the considerations that we give in the policy. So I suppose our view at the moment as an EMT is, things like ChatGPT are great for helping you with things like, a suggested document template or digesting a publicly available document. You could ask it to, summarize a national policy or something, but with the understanding that there might be errors in what you get back. But I think the critical point right now is that we've all done our IG training. We need to make sure that no person identifiable information is shared. Corporate information, commercial information should not be uploaded. As I say, we know that because we do our AG training, and this absolutely applies to AI. So there'll be a policy. If you've got any questions or is any ambiguity, and there may well be, I can see that, then I would link to our IG colleagues to help answer those questions and give some clarity. Hope that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. It's a really exciting world. It's just trying to get our heads around how we best utilise it, I guess, safely. Just looking at the Q&A, a question again that's come up with a number of likes relates to SCW's brand. It would be good to understand how SCW's brand will be managed and protected now there is a cross-CSU marketing team. Lisa, are you best placed to comment?
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Yes, and notwithstanding, obviously, Michael's update on kind of a future sort of CSU name, which obviously will emerge at some point. But it's probably important to remind people we're still our own organisational entity, and our brand is really important to us. It's what distinguishes us. And it's what our customers will recognise. So it's very much front and centre of all the external facing material that we produce. We have set up, as the question alludes to, a contractual arrangement with the CSU Collaborative to provide an external communications and engagement function for SCW. So this is a contract that where we've been very clear about the requirements for SCW in terms of our brand, our content, and how we manage external communications. And this is managed through my team. We have a really close working relationship with the collaborative team around how we integrate and support our collective CSU brands. So you might see on occasion where we're talking about collaborative work, there might be a material that's published that has all 4 CSU logos on it. But that collaborative team is very much an integral part of the development team. They attend all of our regular corporate meetings. They provide subject matter expertise to support service lines around how we talk about the good work we do externally. And so that has been working really well since we launched that in August. So I hope that answers the question. But happy to pick up offline if anyone's got any further questions on that.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. We are rapidly running out of time. So squeeze one final question in. It relates to a question around, have EMT considered adding the option for staff to comment on relevant articles on the Nest? This was done in a previous organisation that I work for and really helped people to engage with news stories and also for comms teams, execs to get valuable feedback. Anyone particularly interested in answering this question?
I can answer that from a clinical forum perspective, Steve, if that's helpful. So to my knowledge, we don't use the Nest to put peer articles on, but I think peer review is really important. The question is really important. And it's probably worth noting that there are quite a lot of forums. I'll use the example of the clinical network, where we will put articles up quite regularly and then discuss the impact of them, what they mean for us. I think that's probably more appropriate on those forums than on the Nest. And I don't, as far as I'm aware, I don't think the Nest has that capability at this point, but there are quite a lot of SCW forums where we can, but it's up to us, you know, it's engagement. People need to put them up and have a chat. Certainly the Darcy one is a really appropriate example of getting that up in the next few days and asking people for their examples. And on that one, it really struck me that the clinical priorities that came out of that were really aligned to SCW's clinical priorities. So I found it really reassuring. So that, yeah, I think it is an important question we do need to have. And I think we do have forums in place to have those conversations.
Thank you. I'm conscious time is rapidly run out. So if I can pass on to Faye to give us a quick summary and then we'll call it a day.
Great, thanks, Steve, and thanks for hosting and managing all the questions and things that have come through. Just a thank you to everybody for the questions that have come through, the pre-submitted ones. If we don't get time, so we haven't had time to answer everything that's come through, we will do that as a follow-up. Thank you, Michael, for joining. Really important to have heard what's going on the CSU collaboration and the operating design work, and just keeping everybody informed on that. Do recognise that people and some of the questions come from a particular area. We've tried to keep these as broad as possible for everybody. And again, one of the things we've been trying to do at EMT is to move it around to the different offices. It was something that Michael had started many years ago, and then we went into the COVID times. We're now doing that circular back to the offices. We're going to be in Bristol next week, and we are hoping to meet as many of you as possible to that event, and we'll also have Michael there as well, so even more of a reason for people to come to the new offices in Bristol. So hopefully we will see as many people as possible. Again, thank you all for your time this morning, and for all the questions and things that have come through, and so we will try and respond to them within a time. I know Vanessa and the team, thank you very much, Vanessa, Jessie and Amy. It does take a lot behind the scenes to do all of this, and to get us all into order. People think there's this little battle rhythm, but it does take quite a bit of time from our team who are organising this behind the scenes to make it as smoothly as possible. And again, thank you, Steve, for acting as the host this morning. Back to you.
Thank you very much. Everyone have a good rest of the day. Thank you, EMT, for your thoughts and considerations. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Steve. Thanks.